My view there is I think Bitcoiners angst a lot about this more than they need to. There's like $750 trillion of property in this world that's owned by non-Bitcoin people that have lesser rights than the worst case for Bitcoin. Like if you conceive of, try to figure out what is the worst case for Bitcoin over the next decade. The worst case for Bitcoin might be right now, as far as I can see, it's like, if you take custody of all your Bitcoin off the exchange, you have to admit that you took it. Okay, that's like, you have to say, I wired 20 Bitcoin to myself. Okay, and there's a disclosure. That's the worst case. And now you have the Bitcoin, and you could have it in any of 100,000 counterparties. You can send it anywhere in 30 minutes, and you've got it on a hardware device, or you've got it on any device. Okay. Now, I want you to think about that worst case. And now I want you to think about the best case for the equivalent amount of gold, silver, property, equity, Apple stock, government bonds, corporate bonds, collectibles, art. Now tell me, is there anything else on earth that you would rather be holding than Bitcoin that you admitted to the government that you hold? Right? The conclusion you come to is every other piece of property, everything else in the crypto ecosystem, everything in the non-crypto ecosystem is inferior to hold under any possible outcome than Bitcoin is right now. So the answer is you ought to just buy Bitcoin. You ought to hold Bitcoin. You ought to tell everybody else to hold Bitcoin. And then when you consider, how do you feel about someone, all these things? Well, I mean, the answer is, this is a twisty one, it turns out that you can fight really, really hard, take the extreme anarchist libertarian point of view to protect all 6,500 cryptos, right? They should, I should be able to create my own Dogecoin, yo-yo coin. That's a currency, that's a privacy coin, that's a security that gives yield that I can send to anybody, right? That's the extreme libertarian view. You could take that view to protect Bitcoin. On the other hand, you might be hurting yourself, because if all those things disappeared tomorrow, the money would probably flow into Bitcoin. So you see, it's a very interesting situation. I think, I don't think we have to fear the government. Not right now, like maybe in a decade. If you look at right now, most of people concerned about regulation in the Bitcoin community, they're extrapolating from an altcoin. Like there's an altcoiner that was issued by some group of people that are going and they're running to the Bitcoin community saying, if the SEC regulates us as a security, or we can't keep doing whatever we're doing, then they'll come for you next. Well, no, I don't think they will. They won't come for us next. Like if someone's running an illegal boiler room pump and dump scheme to defraud the general public and the SEC says you got to stop, I don't think that's a threat to Bitcoin, right? So I think that we overreact, and we don't need to overreact. I don't really see any initiative that prevents anybody from owning Bitcoin as digital property, right? And I think almost if you cloak yourself with every other altcoin, you undermine your case for digital property. I don't think you improve it. And I think we should just come back to the observation that the enemy is not the government. The enemy is property. The enemy is alternate property. If there's $750 trillion worth of money invested in global equities, 300 billion in debt, right? 120 billion in global equity, 300 billion in real estate. All of that stuff has inferior property rights to Bitcoin. So all you have to do is just cheerfully educate the world as to why they're building their ranch land, their oil well drilling rights, all of those things, all their intellectual property is inferior to Bitcoin. It's all inferior to Bitcoin, right? And And within any ecosystem, if you're in Venezuela, Bitcoin is the best property in Venezuela. I don't have an opinion about the government. In Turkey, Bitcoin is the best property in Turkey. I don't have to have an opinion about the government. In Argentina, Bitcoin is the best property in Argentina. In the US, Bitcoin is the best property in the US. In China, Bitcoin is the best property, right? Now, how do you feel about capital controls, wage controls, price controls, labor controls, political laws, religious laws? Everybody's got stuff that they could disagree with. But if you choose to disagree with all those things, right, you're going to be in conflict with a lot of people that aren't against Bitcoin. You're just turning them against Bitcoin, right? People can own property in China. They can own property in Russia. There are a lot of political regimes which are different. As long as it's legal to own property, then instead of fighting the battle, like instead of saying, well, I want to topple securities law, or I want to change the tax code, I want to change the security code, I want to change the political system. Instead of fighting that battle, I think just fight one battle, which is Bitcoin is better property than an acre of land. It's better property than 37 donkeys. It's better property than a lump of gold, right? Is it legal to make a decision to own 100 donkeys instead of a stack of corn, instead of an acre of land, instead of a Bitcoin? If it is, then 99% of the solution to our problem is go find the people that own oil wells and own natural gas fields and own farmland and own tall buildings and cities and own too many cars and own stuff, and convince them to sell that stuff or mortgage that stuff and buy Bitcoin. And how should you do it? Well, within the system that you live in, right? Respect the laws and respect the culture of the society you live in. But by all means, don't invest in 100 donkeys. Don't invest in a bar of gold. Don't invest, the government doesn't have a law that says you have to have 100% of your assets in the local currency, right? Like there aren't very many. By the way, when they get there, that's kind of like getting close to communism. And so if you're talking to the public, right, I think the battle you want to fight is to persuade people that owning a Bitcoin is better than owning a corporate bond. Owning a Bitcoin is better than owning a small building, right? Just all you're doing is trading up weak assets for strong assets.